Welcome back to another edition of the podcast, and it is our Game Week 30 National League preview and predictions. It's been a while since we've last done a podcast. I think I said that last time. To be honest, we haven't kept much consistency over the last couple of months. I'll be honest, a lot of that is down to me. And of course, tonight we're not even streaming on a Thursday. We're streaming on a Wednesday night to preview the fixtures in the National League. As always, it's good to be back, and I am joined, of course, by Paul Franklin. Paul, firstly, how are you doing?
Yes, we're back, Luke. We're back.
Yeah,
I'm all right. I know we've had a couple of weeks of sickness between us, haven't we? So, back fighting fit and raring to go. Not so many to predict this week, is there, with the FA Trophy on the horizon, but some tasty games to look at, and it's starting to shape up nicely at both ends of the table. So, and there's not a lot really been going on in the National League, has there, in the last few weeks, Luke?
No,
so, I've not really got lots to talk about, have we? But it is what it is. It's a bonkers league, and these teams and clubs are showing that at the moment. So been an interesting couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll touch on some of those stuff tonight.
Yeah, of course. Not too many fixtures to preview. I think we've got the six National League fixtures that we've got to preview tonight. So I just had enough to actually create a thumbnail. If anyone knows the design of how I put my videos out, I need at least 6 fixtures for it to look right. So just about got enough, to be honest. Of course, there is a lot in the National League. Paul was being sarcastic there. There is a lot in the National League to discuss tonight. Of course, we're coming towards the end of Jan now. There's a lot of transfers that have happened, a fair few managerial changes as well that I'm sure we can dive into tonight. Let us know your thoughts in the comments or any topics that you want us to discuss, and I'm sure we'll do that. But no, of course, we've not been on for a couple of weeks. A lot of it's been down to illness, technical issues as well from my part as well. But it is good to be back. And I think over the last couple of weeks, for Wealdstone, manager's gone. You brought in a new manager. The same day that your manager actually left to join Solihull Moors, you went and managed to bring in a striker that had been with you for the first half of the season back on loan. I was going to ask you this: what would you rather have, Taylor as the manager, or would you rather have Alex Reid back?
There's only one answer to that: Alex Reid as manager. Alex Reid as back as a player, Luke. He get 11 goals or something for us just before he went, in his short spell of time with us, and became a fan's favourite. Really enjoyed playing for the football club. That was obvious. We did think that at some point that he was going back to Oldham, probably to get signed by someone higher up the National League, and it didn't materialise. So the club acted quickly to get him back on our books, and he was desperately needed. Yeah, it was a good piece of news off the back of Matt Taylor going out. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, Luke. I didn't like Matt Taylor as a manager at Wealdstone. I didn't think he fitted. He won 5 games in 25 matches. It took him 15 games to understand what team he was going to play. I think we've done well at this stage to get rid of him and not have to pay him off and sack him, because they're pretty sure he was at times close to that happening. And I think, what the Wealdstone fan base have come out and sort of suggested about him, it's probably, he probably wasn't as loved as everyone maybe thought. And, and that's no disrespect to him. He's clearly an intelligent fella. He's well versed in giving interviews. He's media trained. He's come from professional outfits. Wealdstone, as much as they want to be professional, they've still got that sort of small club element to it in terms of the manager knowing the fans and the fans knowing the manager. So, I think his time was done. It was a shame that he left in the manner he did. He just sort of went. But when an opportunity comes up, you don't blame people for taking them, Luke. And he's clearly got connections at Solihull Moors with the director of football and the chairman, etc. So, good luck to him. He's going to a full-time outfit. We've now got this lad in from Wales who no one really knows a lot about, but he comes with an awful lot of, I guess, he's got a good plaudits, and he's been well received on social media. So we'll just have to see how it goes. And interestingly, we got Solihull Moors at home on Saturday, so we'll see what type of response Taylor gets, because I'm pretty sure Alex Reid will get a better response than Matt Taylor does.
Yeah, potentially, to be honest. But no, that's one of the good fixtures to preview this week. We haven't got many, but that'll be quite a heated game. Of course, Alex Reid, ex-Solihull, and Matt Taylor. I think only his second game actually in charge of Solihull Moors, which will be up against his old club in Wealdstone. But I have to say, when I saw that Solihull had appointed Matthew Taylor as the manager, I was a bit surprised. I think he's done very well to be able to go from Wealdstone, where I don't think he's done an awful job at all, but I don't think he's set the world alight at Wealdstone, to then make a huge step up to a Solihull side that are currently just outside of the playoffs. For me, overall, I think that's a great move for him personally. Of course, Solihull losing their manager. I don't know if you saw what Solihull's statement was when they actually let, they didn't actually let Andy Wing go. Andy Wing moved on. Solihull actually came out and said, "Thanks for your time, Andy Wing. For now we can appoint someone who's got a bit more ambition for the club." So they were kind of suggesting that they didn't feel Andy Wing actually did that well in the first half of the season. For me personally, I look at Solihull. Andy Wing goes to the Football League to be with Barrow. They look for a replacement. I think they've kind of rushed into this quite quickly, bringing in Matty Taylor, because, like I've mentioned, if I compared him and Wing and what they've done, I know Matthew Taylor's only been at Wealdstone for a short period of time, but if you look at his managerial career overall, it's not been a very successful career. And like I've mentioned, I don't think his time at Wealdstone, I don't think he set the world alight, and I don't think there'll be many Wealdstone fans out there that'll lose sleep over losing Matty Taylor, because, like I've mentioned, you've been pondering just above the relegation zone for the majority of the season. If it wasn't for Alex Reid actually coming in and a few players returning from injury, Wealdstone would probably be right in the thick of the relegation zone at the moment. Of course, you have slipped back into it now for the first time. But of course, games in hand, you'll be confident you'll be able to win those games in hand and be able to climb out of the drop zone, because I know you've got the games in hand, but you never like to be in the drop zone, do you? You'd rather have the points on the board, I suppose.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And it's I know it was one of my other criticisms of Matt Taylor. We had David Noble this time last year, who didn't last too long. He never left us in the bottom four. Matt Taylor did. And what really irks me is Matt Taylor had a full-time position with full-time physio, better facilities, more time with the squad, albeit probably only one, maybe 2 sessions a week at max. And he, as far as I'm concerned, he took us backwards, Luke. The size of our squad, the amount of money they were spending, and the quality is there, definitely is there, because we've seen results that they can get. But he just wasn't getting a tune out of them. And as much as he's a name, I guess, he still hasn't done very well as a manager. And you're right, very, very surprised he's got a job with a team in the playoffs or the playoff hunt. I think it's more what you know than who you know than what you know, I think, at this present time. And, good luck to him. I hope they do okay after Saturday. Hopefully we'll get a result against them. But, yeah, very surprising appointment by them. I think Wealdstone in the long run are probably going to be grateful that he made that decision. And we've really now just got to look forward to this new manager to come in and hopefully just sort of get a bit of bounce and get those games under our belt that we got in hand, which I believe are against Tamworth and Braintree. So winnable games, Luke. On paper, they've got to be the sort of games we've got to look at. Although recently we've lost to AFC Fylde and Maidenhead down there since Christmas. So, they're not given. We've got to earn the right to win those. So it's going to be a tricky couple of months. I think we also have got enough with Alex Reid coming back, with the new manager coming in. There's a bit more positivity about the place, but it's going to be a real tough run-in. And we've got to be mindful that other teams around us are doing just as well and starting picking up points.
I was shocked that Alex Reid returned to Wealdstone. I honestly, when I look in, I don't actually think that was the plan all along, was for him to go back to Oldham to then be loaned out. I don't know whether it was a case of Oldham actually wanting him in their long-term plans, because he went back to Oldham, played a handful of games, didn't particularly do very well, and then now he's been loaned back out to Wealdstone. So it's quite intriguing what the actual initial plan was for Oldham there. Was it to sell him on and no one could afford his wages? That's something that will be interesting to hear. But I think for Wealdstone fans, I don't think they'll particularly care. I think they're just happy to have him back now at the club. Did very, very well in that first half of the season. Was exactly what you needed when you were in a lot of trouble before he came in. He did a very strong job there. And then after now recently, it started to look a little bit bleak there again. And you managed to bring him back on loan. And you'd like to think now that we'll be able to get the goals for you guys to be able to survive, because there's not many teams down there who've got a striker like Alex Reid to their disposal. And that's something that Wealdstone have got overall. And that is, I think, what you need to be able to survive in this division. Of course, a defeat to Fylde. But I think in the long run, you'll feel a lot more comfortable now knowing Alex Reid has actually returned. For me, overall, I look at the sides down there and I don't see why not Wealdstone can't survive this season, because there's a lot of really, really poor sides down there this season in particular, and that's no disrespect to those clubs. But if you look at the actual points projected to be able to survive this season, it's going to be low 40s at the moment. And I think when you look at Wealdstone's squad overall in the first half of the season, you'd like to think they'll be able to have enough to be able to survive. Of course, they're in action back at home this Saturday against Solihull.
Yeah, you're right. You're looking at other results now and seeing how they do. I think once there's parity around the games played, then we're going to get a little bit more of an idea where people sit, or where teams sit rather, because Fylde have got a game in hand. Wealdstone have got 2 games in hand. Even Boston are 6 points behind. But if they go on their run, they beat York at the weekend. They're going to be buoyed by that. All of a sudden, could they pull themselves in? But then you look at the likes of Aldershot and Woking, who though both of them haven't lost in the last 5 games, they've only won 1 each. So they're not converting draws to wins. So all of a sudden they're being sucked in. So Maidenhead are doing exactly what Maidenhead do, and are clawing points here, there, and everywhere, and they're staying out of that bottom 4. So, yeah, an interesting period. Lots of games in February for a lot of the teams, isn't there? Because of the weather, etc. So you got your Saturday, Tuesdays coming up in February now. So February's a key month. The teams will have their squad settled. There won't be too many more transfers, I don't suppose, unless there's free agents floating around. Loan deals, I think, have to be done by a certain date as well. So, yeah, February's going to be a real key month now, that especially for the likes of Wealdstone, even for the likes of Oldham. They've changed their squad around a little bit. York haven't exactly done brilliantly in the last couple of weeks. So, teams up and down the league are going to look at February and go, this is a really important month before, March and April brings the season to an end.
Yeah, certainly. And just speaking towards the top of the table, I actually went to see York v Oldham last Tuesday. The plan was we were going to do a vlog for that game. It ended up, all the interviews that I had planned, we misjudged the time, which meant we couldn't do the interviews. We then went into the ground. The game was horrendous, and I mean horrendous. York came out 2-0 winners. I was saying the game needs a goal. I thought when York got the goal, it was going to be a really open game after that. But Oldham was so poor. I'd be quite concerned as an Oldham fan. There's no question for me that they're not involved in this title race now. Not just because of that game, but it wasn't really the result. It was the fact that how poor they actually were. It felt like they'd flashed back to last season in the way that they played when they were at the worst against York. Because I got a lot of stick for this online, but I didn't actually think York played that well. I don't think they had to be honest. That was the point that I was making, that they didn't even have to get out of second gear. Yeah, I made that point, and the amount of comments that I had from York fans, the tweet wasn't even based on York, really. It was based on how poor Oldham were. The amount of York fans that I had just criticising me was quite amusing, to be honest. A few months ago, it was Oldham, and I had loads of Oldham fans saying I had an agenda against them. I think it was against you as well, Paul. Now suddenly all the York fans are currently saying that apparently I dislike them because of that last-minute winner against us a few months ago. I'm not like that. I'm not biased. I'll literally just making a statement which I felt was true, to be honest. I didn't think York were very good at all, but I don't think they had to be honest, on that night. I thought Oldham was so poor, and I think a big reason for that, it's not just the fact they've lost Josh Stones, Oldham. It's also the fact that Clucas, of course, a midfielder, Premier League pedigree midfielder, ex-Premier League player, has actually gone on and left. And I don't think the replacements have come in and set the world alight. Billy Waters has come in. He's kind of struggling, I think, in that team, in the way they play. Rossiter's come in. I don't think he's really set the world alight either. And it's going to be really hard to fill those players. You know, you're losing Clucas, you're losing Stones. I still don't understand why Stones has gone to York. I don't think he fits into their plans. I don't think he's scored yet either for York overall. So it was a very weird signing for me. And I still don't think it was really York's best option if they're going to spend that type of money. But no, for Oldham, I was very concerned with them. And I think it's a case for them is just finishing inside the playoffs, because if they play like that every week from now until the end of the season, if that's really what Oldham are about now because of Clucas and Stones and they feel sorry for themselves, I don't think Oldham will even get inside the playoffs if they play like that. I'd like to think they'll be able to get their act together and finish inside the playoffs this season. What's your take been on Oldham in recent weeks?
Yeah, they've, at that point where we both would sort of saying that they've got their act together now. Mickey Mellon's got a really good squad, and for some reason he's turned it over a little bit. Yes, he's lost the likes of Clucas and Stones, obviously, but they've reverted back to sort of last season's type, haven't they, Luke? And it's a real shame because they did look like they were going to really hammer that door against the likes of Barnet and York and Forest Green. And I think you're right. They've caused themselves their own problems here. And they've got a real uphill battle now to try and sort of stay. I think they'll probably stay in the playoffs because they have got 2 games in hand. I mean, Rochdale have got 4 on some. I think Gateshead are the ones that are in a little bit more danger. I think Oldham are better equipped to pull themselves out of it. But yeah, I mean, they've really missed the trick. They've really missed the trick because apart from Barnet, York and Forest Green are both showing a little bit of consistency for teams that are at the top of the table. Don't get me wrong, teams towards the bottom would like Forest Green and York's kind of patterns of wins and draws, but to be consistently good at the top, you need more W's on the board than anything else, and they haven't got that. Barnet are the ones that are showing that sort of that consistency. So Oldham haven't acted on that, and it's a real shame for them. But I think they'll come good. I genuinely do think they'll come good. I think they know what's required. I don't think they'll do what they did last year. I hope they don't do what they did last year and sort of fizzle out. But who knows? I think that's Gateshead are going to be the ones that do that this time, rather than maybe Oldham.
I think for your Gates and your Oldhams, they will be looking over the shoulder because Halifax are quickly improving. You look at the wins that they've got recently. They've gone to Gateshead away from home, beaten them. They've gone to Solihull and defeated them. If you are a Gateshead, losing to a playoff rival like that, you're going to be a little bit concerned, particularly when you look at them improving. You also look at other sides, Altrincham, a side that are improving there. Not giving up this season, they still feel that they can finish inside the playoffs this season. So for me, your Gates and your Oldhams will be looking over the shoulder at the moment. And I think Oldham, they'd rather be looking towards the top of the table and actually going for the title. But, it does feel like in recent weeks they've kind of blown it. And a lot of that isn't actually their own fault. A lot of it's losing certain players, like the York game. But against York, it did feel like they just gifted York 3 points. They were just hoofing the ball forward. Felt like there were no game plan whatsoever for Oldham. And it's going to be difficult. I think it's a time of adjustment for Oldham when you look at the players that they've lost. And be something that they won't really be used to in this division. Oldham are overall quite a big dog. They usually manage to keep the squad together. But this window so far, it's not been a good January transfer window for them. Usually for the bigger clubs, it's a time of year that they look forward to because you're going to be able to attract more players. Whereas for Oldham, it feels like they've lost a lot of key players during this window, whilst others around them have got stronger. Like you look at Halifax, for example, they're a side for me that I think have got stronger with the additions that they've made. They haven't really lost anyone like you might have expected them to. Whereas for Oldham, it's like they've been weaker. They haven't started 2025 in the way that they would have liked. I don't even think they've got a win in 2025 yet. So it certainly is concerning times for Oldham at the moment, and they'll be hoping to get back to winning ways. Anyway, we'll look at the live chat then now. Mickey's here, said hello, welcome to the stream, Mickey. Yorkie the Lion said evening all, welcome Yorkie, and then Mr. Luke is here, Paul. Oh, you're mute.
Yeah, no, I like the font. They said, "Oh, Mr. Luke, hello, gents. Hard fought point against Oldham. Still on a bit of a poor run of form, but it's expected with us losing lots of players. No Gateshead for us on the weekend. No pressure, lads."
Good to have you back, Mr. Luke. Good to have you here. And then we've also had tonight York is coming in. A shocking defeat to Boston for us at the weekend. They were poor, but we were much worse. The Stone situation is baffling. Could you add to that when you say it's baffling? Do you mean the fact that you expected him to do better than what he's done so far, or the signing in the first place? Because for me, overall, I still don't understand the signing, and to be honest, so far, I am going to be smug about it. My point's kind of been proven, the fact that it wasn't the right addition. I know it's still early. It's still early, but he's not really set the world alight yet. He hasn't scored on his debut. He hasn't scored loads of goals. He hasn't kept that momentum up that he had at Oldham. So for me, it certainly is a bit of a weird signing overall. And then we've had Reese who's come in. Paul?
Leon Chambers, Parallon to Southend. What are both your thoughts?
I've heard of him.
Right. Well, Leon Chambers Parallon plays for Slough, Luke. I know a little bit about Leon. I have seen him play a couple of times for Slough. Slough's very local to where I am. I'm very fortunate as well. I know the Slough manager, Scott Davis, and I spoke to him about Leon this week. And, Scott is full of praise for him. He was Oxford United as a kid and got injured, and they released him. And Scott picked him up from that academy and sort of gave him the opportunity to come back and play, get himself fit. And he's proved to be a brilliant signing for them. The kid's got everything, and he'll end up in the EFL if his trajectory keeps going the same way. He's a real centre midfield power. He's one of those. He's rangy. He's strong. He's good on the ball. He's got a bit of everything, and he will be a perfect fit for National League, the type of league it is. Where you need a bit of pace and power, as well as that nice sort of touch control. A bit of finesse when you need it. So, and he's got age on his side. He's only a young lad. So, Southend have done very, very well. I know there was more than one team in for him. Southend, if they have signed him, I don't know whether that's happened yet or not, but I know there's speculation. I haven't had that confirmed, so I can't say either way whether he has signed for them or not. But if he has signed for them, then Southend have got a very, very good player, and if they are going to sign him, it's a big loss to Slough. They're struggling a little bit in the National League South at the moment. They had a really good run of games. They can't buy a win at the moment. So to lose someone like him will be a real blow to them, but a real fillip to Southend. And, my words, I think we'll be talking about him being one of those lads that goes up into the EFL without a doubt.
Speaking of strikers rumoured from the lower leagues, Brentwood Town striker Daniel Unalegia, I think that's how you pronounce. Probably not I don't think that's how you pronounce it. It's just my best my best way of pronouncing it. But Halifax have been rumoured to sign him. He scored 28 goals in 2 leagues below the National League at the moment. Southend were rumoured as well, but he's been training with Halifax apparently on trial, and apparently they're looking to sign him on a permanent basis. I think for me overall, I'm really optimistic about Halifax at the moment. We're doing well in the league, just made a few additions. We signed, I think Thomas, is it, from Leeds? He came on and looked a touch of class against Solihull Moors. Did well at York. York fans were praising him. And I think for when you see a title contender at the moment praising a striker, when you think of some of the strikers that they've got, that's promising signs. And for me, the only reason I didn't really get into that York side was because of the firepower that they've already got there. I don't think he ever really stood a chance. Whereas at Halifax, he's going to get opportunities. But for us to have 3 strikers, who all seem like they've got a bit of potential about them. For me, I'm quite optimistic because goals has been an issue. But yeah, this lad's been rumoured. He was also rumoured to go to Southend, but I think it's more likely that he's going to sign for Halifax. So hopefully, as a Halifax fan perspective, that is the case. Boovy's come in and said, can you see Rochdale getting points deductions if they continue to have home matches called off? For me personally, no. Halifax had this issue last year. Looks like we're going to have the issue once again. It must be something to do with this part of the country, to be honest, Halifax, Rochdale and around there, because they seem to be two clubs that struggle with pitches at the moment. I think worst comes to worst, Rochdale will play in an alternate ground. Yeah, what's your take? Could you see points deductions happening to the likes of Halifax and Rochdale?
No. I mean, it's one of those things, Luke. You can't odds the weather, right? The weather at the moment is just crazy all over the place. You got Florida's full of snow. You got areas of Europe that's meant to have snow that hasn't got snow. We've had far too much rain than we've ever sort of seen. From what I can remember, on a constant basis, and these clubs just don't have the resources and the money to be able to have these pitches in a fit and playable state. If it's waterlogged, it's waterlogged. There's not a lot we can do about it. I think you're right. The only alternative is do you flip them to away games? Do you find alternate venues? Yeah, but then if you're finding alternative venues, are they venues that have got 5G or the AstroTurf? Because I know that's the National League. There isn't too many teams with those pitches. There's more in the National League South, as an example. But yeah, I mean, point deduction is just going to be very harsh. I tell you what will hit them is if they have to play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday towards the end of the season to get their games in. That is, if you want to, is their punishment. And I'm not suggesting punishment is the word, but that's what they're going to have to deal with. So, I'm pretty sure they're not sitting there at their grounds and thinking like Halifax, all right. So thinking, well, it don't matter if this Saturday's off. They want to get these games on. A home match is a huge amount of revenue lost, be it 1,000 people through the door or 4,000 or 5,000 people through the door. There's still revenue lost. These players still need paying. And if you haven't got a home game where there's a bit of revenue coming through the door, it's going to hit them hard. So they're going to want these games on. So I think points deductions is a bit ridiculous. I think you're right. Changing grounds, reversing them if you haven't played them the other way so far. All those sorts of things can be put in play. And they're going to suffer with their squad having to play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah, and I think when you're playing at alternative venues as well, you're already on the backlash in a way, because I remember last season Halifax were comfortably on their way to finish inside a playoff spot, and then they had to play a few games at Accrington, and we had a lot of winnable games at home as well that I'd have expected us to win. We dropped points. I think we lost to Barnet, and then we also drew to Ebbsfleet when we had to play at Accrington, and then drew to Oldham at Chesterfield's ground. Now, it felt like such a disadvantage to us when we had to play at an alternative ground. And I think that is, like you've mentioned there, if there is some sort of punishment, that is what the punishment is, I suppose, not being able to play at home games. And also, as well as that, we had a week, the final week of the season, that I think did end up catching up with us inside the playoffs. When we had to play our playoff game eventually, felt like we were tired from that previous week. We had to play Saturday, which I think was against Barnet in the National League at Accrington's ground. We then played on Tuesday night against Ebbsfleet at Accrington's ground. We then had to play on Thursday night in Chesterfield against Oldham. And then on Saturday, we had the final game of the season, which was away at Eastleigh. Now, we somehow finished inside the playoffs that season. We won on the final day, which we needed to do. But then the following Tuesday, we then had to go to Solihull Moors and play them in the playoffs. And it did feel like that eventually did catch up to us. And that's something that if Rochdale finish inside the playoffs, which they're well on track to do at the moment, if they can win the games in hand, then maybe in the playoffs, that's when it's going to catch up with them having to play at alternative grounds, and then in the playoffs eventually as well. So it is a massive disadvantage. I find it frustrating when you see fans online being quite smug about it and kind of degrading clubs as well. and saying, oh, they're doing it on purpose. There's no way that Halifaxers and your Rochdales are doing this on purpose. There's nothing in it for them to do anything like this on purpose. So I do find that quite amusing. Kezza's here. Welcome to the stream, Kezza. I think I saw you the other night in Oldham. Yeah, it wasn't the best game for you guys at all. And then we've also had Hazzy's coming. Thoughts on Southend finally clicking, and could you see it coming? 7 wins in 10, 5 clean sheets in 6, some good additions and rumours as of late. Yeah, Southend certainly improved. Can you see them putting a case together to be in this playoff race with some of those clubs in there?
Well, if you look at that recent record, then without a doubt, Luke, if you look at the way Oldham have dropped, the problem you got is, as an example, Oldham have dropped with Southend in reverse of that. The challenge, they're only 3 points behind. So, Halifax got 2 games in hand, Altrincham have got a game in hand, Rochdale have got 4 games in hand, and Oldham have got 2. So I think the only thing that will go against them is if those teams, Halifax, Altrincham, Rochdale, and Oldham, do win some of their games in hand and put points on the board, which stretches them away from the pack that are chasing them. But Southend are doing what we always say they need to do, or any team needs to do, Luke, is put the points on the board. If we go over Oldham, they're unlikely to get maximum points out of their 2 games in hand the way they've played. Rochdale probably won't get all 4 games. They won't win all those. Altrincham haven't done too bad. Halifax possibly will, because they're a team similar to Southend, are in form. So I certainly think Southend have definitely got a good chance. And you can only build on that good run. And you see a lot of teams throughout the league, throughout the year, will have those patches where they'll go on a bad run or a good run. Southend are probably doing it just at the right time. And if they can continue that into March and April, then who knows?
Big ask for me, I think, for Southend finishing inside the playoffs. We spoke about it a lot. I think as throughout the whole season, we've always thought, Southend are capable of going on a run and putting a case together to climb up the league and be in this playoff race. Of course, they sit 11th at the moment. That defeat as well came against the Barnet side, who currently sit top of the league. I just think for me overall, it's going to be a bit of a big ask. I don't think that's the aim overall this season. I know Justin Rees came out and actually said that they need to average 2 points a game. This was a few weeks ago to finish inside the playoffs this season. I do think that is still the case. But I just think you look at your Halifaxes, your Altrinchams at the moment, don't feel like they're letting up. And I just think it's going to be a big ask for Southend to finish inside the playoffs this season. It'll be interesting to see when they have a couple of defeats, how they react. And that's something that Southend can't afford to do now. Whereas your Halifaxes, your Altrinchams, your Solihuls can probably afford to do that because they're in a higher position. Whereas Southend have to go to the end of the season performing like a side, probably like a side that's inside the title race. And do I really think that this Southend side is capable of doing that? For me, overall, no. I think next season's when Southend are really gonna push on. Chris Stringer's coming and said, once we get Conlon back and a new striker, don't panic about Oldham. Rather have our blip in Jan than April and May up the Latics. Quite optimistic there from yourself. And then up the cards, and great podcast, guys. Thank you very much. We do appreciate the kind words. I know we're only about half an hour in, but it is going to be probably a shorter one tonight because that many fixtures to preview. Do you want to preview these 6 games then, Paul?
Yeah. Why not? I mean, as we go through the teams, we can talk about them as in a bit more depth anyway, because there's still a couple more. Dagenham have changed their manager, haven't they? And I think we got to speak about Barnet and their impressive run at the moment, and Hartlepool's improvement as well. So but there's plenty to talk about with these games coming up for no doubt at all.
Yeah, well, of course. So what was I going to say now? Oh yeah, the predictions league. That's what I'm going to mention. I think there were about 4 games that actually took place, and I think we got like 2 points each or something very low. So I do need to calculate that, but I didn't think there was really any point of updating it for tonight's podcast. So I'll do that for next week when there's more games to actually get points from. And I say that this week there's only 6 games to preview, and that's hoping that no games get postponed. So hopefully none do for the predictions leagues. But no, we can get on with the predictions, and I'm sure we'll talk about the clubs as well in a bit more detail as we do that. Game week 30, I think we're on overall. Here we go. Starting things off with Braintree versus Hartlepool. Of course, Hartlepool losing at the weekend to Barnet. Since Lenny Lawrence has come in, all the defeats have been away from home, and they've been to sides that are comfortably inside the playoffs. So it's probably not too concerning for Hartlepool. They've done pretty well against the sides that they need to be beating. I think the concern is if they do somehow finish inside the playoffs this season, how they're going to perform in the actual playoffs themselves, because they're struggling against sides who are in there. I think the defeats have been against Barnet, York, and Gateshead. Since Lenny Lawrence has come in as the permanent manager. For this game, though, we speak about sides that they've struggled against. They haven't struggled against sides towards the bottom of the table. A few draws, but overall done quite well. So I'm going to back Hartlepool to win this game 1-0. How do you see it going?
Oh, 1-0, only 1-0.
Yeah.
I have gone for a 3-1 win for Hartlepool. I saw Hartlepool a couple of weeks ago at the Vale, and it was a 1-1 draw, but I mean, Wealdstone really went at them in the second half. Hartlepool controlled the first half, and they looked a team that weren't strolling, but they weren't under any massive amount of pressure. But second half, Stones put them under pressure. If it wasn't for their goalkeeper who made 2 cracking saves, I think Wealdstone would have won the game. But yeah, they've still got that firepower up top. There's having Medine up there. They did have Loire playing, who has been released this week, who's another name that we're familiar with. But I think they'll be all right. I think you're right. The acid test will be if they get in the playoffs, how will they cope with those top teams, because they've not been doing very well against them in the league. But I think on Saturday they'll be too strong for Braintree, who are putting up a bit of a fight to stay out of the bottom 4. So I think Braintree will succumb and Hartlepool will win 3-1.
Yeah, Braintree actually come into this unbeaten in 3 back-to-back wins against Solihull, which was quite a statement win for them. And then, of course, beating Ebbsfleet away from home, who have shown signs of improvements. They've done well to get maximum points from those 2 games. Moving on to the next one then. My team, Halifax, in action versus Ebbsfleet. Done very well away from home now. And if there was a home fixture that you wanted to come back to, I would say it would be Ebbsfleet at home for Halifax. I think this is a must-win game. The home form for Halifax doesn't look the healthiest, but considering we haven't actually played at home for a long time, I think it's quite hard to judge Halifax's home form based on that first half of the season. I'm actually going to back us to win quite convincingly here. I think with the firepower that we've added, we have got the capabilities to put a fair few goals past a poor side in Ebbsfleet. So I'm going to actually say 4-0 to Halifax, which would be our biggest home win, I think, of the season. How do you see it going?
I have gone for a Halifax win, Luke. I've gone for a 2-0 win. So I hope that doesn't put the dampers on.
Hopefully not.
But I mean, look, Ebbsfleet are just not cutting it, are they? In the last 5 games, they have got 3 draws. Against Woking, against Yeovil, and against Boston. So
that only works out as a win, though, doesn't it? That's the thing. It looks like they've improved, which they have over the course of the season. But if you look at that alternative, it's like getting 1 win in 5, which ain't going to be good enough.
Yeah, completely right. So I suppose they've got to take a little bit of encouragement that they picked up some draws. The problem is they're picking up draws against teams in and around them in that bottom half. They need to be winning those games. You want them to beat Boston. You want them to possibly beat Woking. Yeovil, maybe not. It's a mid-table team, but or pushing on to the playoffs. But yeah, I'd listen. Halifax, they're on a great run of form. They're one of the informed teams in the league. Like you said, you know better than anyone, Luke, in terms of how it is up at the Shea and the sort of the belief and the buoyancy that they've got. And I think that will continue. You're right. Having a home game against someone like Ebbsfleet, and you can't take it for granted. You can't say you're definitely going to beat them, but that's a nice home tie to come back to and keep that run going.
Next game then that we'll have a look at will be Tamworth versus Barnet. Tamworth's been a bogey side for a lot of the top sides this season. I think York, Forest Green, both failed to actually get a result. Well, actually win at Tamworth. overall. I think Gates did as well. They lost to Tamworth too. Can Barnet be the first side in that top 4 so that can go to Tamworth and actually win there? Do you think they will? You on mute? Yeah.
So I put it on mute because the family were making noise in the background. Yeah, Barnet are the team that are showing the best sort of performance really at the top end, aren't they? You know, they've won the last games. I don't think Tamworth are going to worry them. They'll give it a go, Tamworth, and we've seen that. You know, they've played Tottenham and given them a go, so you can't say they're not going to play Barnet and give them a go. But I think Barnet are going to be too strong for them, and they'll win 3-1.
Yeah, it's a hard one to call this. I'm going to go for a draw because Barnet overall, I think their away form's improved over the course of the season. I think that's kind of been what's held them back a little bit, is that away form. I think Barnet now they've got to top spot, they'll want to break away from the pack and just keep winning. But I just feel like Tamworth is a difficult place to go. You know, we saw them hold Tottenham to a 0-0 draw, and they actually lost in extra time to them. You know, Tamworth's form overall doing very, very well in the league. Comfortable in mid-table, looking like they're going to survive this season. As for Barnet, yes, inform themselves, but it's a really difficult place to go for a lot of those top sides. You know, the fans get on top of you. It's quite an intimidating place. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw for this game. We'll move on to the next one, and it is your side. Matthew Taylor is returning to Wealdstone with Solihull Moors. I think Wealdstone will win this game. You know, I think, yes, they had a defeat at the weekend, but of course, Alex Reid back. I know we played at the weekend, but can settle back in there fully now. As for Solihull, not on good form at all at the moment, and I'm not too impressed with the Matthew Taylor managerial addition overall. I think they could have probably done better, and I think Wealdstone will be really, really hungry to be able to get revenge, I suppose you might put it like that, and win this game. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 Wealdstone win. How do you see it going?
I'd like to think with the Vale having 1,500 people in it, majority of them not really wanting to welcome Matt Taylor back with open arms, I should imagine. New manager who's come out this week and has really said the right things, and I genuinely feel that he wants to do well for the football club and understands what that club means to certain people, and wants to get involved in the community. Everything that Matt Taylor didn't do, I think that will help us. Hopefully he'll get a real identity of the way that we want to play. He stated that he thinks he's got the players to play the way he wants to play, which isn't dissimilar to what we saw under Stuart Maynard and Matty Saunders. So we are still susceptible to making mistakes, Luke. We made 2 mistakes on Saturday. We played Fylde. We're in complete control at half time and end up losing 2-0 to a very, very weak Fylde side. So we are susceptible to making mistakes. I do think Wealdstone will win. I've gone for a high scoring 3-2 win. Fair
enough then. That won't be out of the question. I know Wealdstone have been involved in a lot of high-scoring games in the past at home. A lot of 3-2s as well, if I remember too correctly. But we'll move on to the next game then. York versus Dagenham. Dagenham, new manager. York, of course, a defeat. I think they'll be quite frustrated and disappointed the fact that they went to Oldham, got all 3 points, and then lost at home to a Sutton side that are outside of the playoffs at the moment. But, Sutton seem to be a difficult side for a lot of the top sides. I know they got a point against Barnet. I think Barnet were quite fortunate to get anything out of that game. And then to go to York and win there says a lot about Sutton. I think York will be looking to get back to winning ways, and I do think that they'll be able to do that against Dagenham. Dagenham have been very inconsistent over the course of the season. I'm going to go for a 3-1 York win. What's your thoughts on Dagenham's new appointment, first of all, and how do you see this one going?
Yes, I think it's bold of Dagenham to give the job to Lewis Young. He's not proven at this level to manage. He's played and coached at higher levels and at this level, and he clearly knows the club and he clearly knows the players. So I guess the familiarity helps. I would imagine that he showed an awful lot of enthusiasm and desire to want to do that job, and that's a huge thing. I think if you're an owner of any football club, you want someone to really want to manage the club. So I think he's probably proven himself behind the scenes as well as some of the caretaker roles. But I feel for him like I did feel for Ben Strevens. They've been in a massive amount of flux and change and inconsistency for the last couple of seasons, and he's really got to try and iron that out a little bit. Otherwise, Dagenham aren't going to be threatening. I think we spoke to him, we said, if they can get themselves together, they've got that opportunity to threaten playoffs maybe next season. But he's an unproven man, a bit like the Wealdstone manager coming in. He's unproven. Even Matty Taylor's a bit of that unproven in the National League. The Gateshead manager, he's unproven. So we've got some managers in there now that are new to this league or relatively new. So he's in the same boat as many others, and I hope he does well because he's a young manager, and we always like to see new blood coming in. No disrespect to the likes of Lenny Lawrence, but you can't have the sort of 50, 60, 70-year-olds died in the wall managers in the National League forever. You're going to need new blood at some point. So I can't see them winning Saturday. They're going away to York. York do need to make a win. Like you said, they're going to look at the Barnet fixture and think, actually, can we get something? Because will Barnet get anything out of Tamworth? It's a tough place to go. So I think York will win 3-0.
Final game then, which is Fylde versus Oldham, but it doesn't seem to be appearing at the moment. It might be on Gameweek 31. Is it there? No, it's not there actually. But Fylde versus Oldham. Oldham winless in 5. Fylde, of course, got a win against Wealdstone, and the issue has been, I think, over the course of the season, the fact that they haven't been able to back it up. They lost in midweek to Southend. How do you see that one going then, Paul? If I can get it up here.
For all those Oldham fans that do tune in, I know we get an awful lot of them, you'll be pleased to know that I've gone with an Oldham 3-0 win. Fylde aren't a very good football team. Again, not knocking them. They're not. They're struggling. You're right. I think they did. I wouldn't suggest they smashed and grabbed against Wealdstone. They took their opportunities, but they certainly didn't outplay Wealdstone. And then they go to Southend. And can we give a shout out to the 9 Fylde fans who travelled to Southend, Luke, for Roots Hall, a midweek game? So, hats off to you guys. I know we both travelled home and away to follow our teams, and many of the people on this stream who watch, they do exactly the same week in, week out. We all know the dedication that it takes in time and money and effort to go to games, be it home or away, and to go to Southend, which is a long, long journey from the northwest down to almost the south, on the south coast, if you like. Excellent. It might only be 9, but it's still 9 fans. So fair play to them, and I hope they get repaid with their faith and they get something out of Saturday. But I personally can't see it happening. I think Oldham have got to turn this corner. They've got to take advantage of those games in hand as well, and need to get a bit of form in there. So I think Oldham will win 3-0.
I'm going to agree with you on Oldham winning. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Oldham win. Yeah, like you've mentioned there, Oldham need to get back to winning ways, and this is a Fylde side for me that's very poor. Rely on Nick Horton very heavily, and he's kind of gone off the boil, hasn't he, in the last couple of months. Had a very good start to the season, but hasn't been able to score the same amount of goals what he was doing. And Fylde have seemed to suffer because of that. And I think Oldham, because of the needs for them to get back to winning ways, I think they'll be able to do that. And I think they're going to win 2-1. But yeah, just your point there about Fylde fans travelling all the way to Roots Hall. Massive respect to them. I think for me overall, I have more respect for the fans like that will travel and support the team no matter what, than those clubs where they're guaranteed to take thousands away from home. Because a lot of the fans online, when you see them abuse clubs, which you did with the Fylde fans that travelled, you saw them say, oh, it's embarrassing. A lot of those fans would only actually go to the local away days. They wouldn't actually do what those Fylde fans have actually done on the Tuesday night. So a massive plaudits to those Fylde fans that did travel. I think it says a lot when you're prepared to follow your team all that way, knowing that you're probably not going to take hundreds with you all that way. So fair play to those Fylde fans that did travel all the way down to Fylde, and hopefully for you guys, you can get rewarded at some point. Hopefully not this Saturday for the Predictions League's sake, to be fair. But no, I think Oldham will win this game 2-1. And that wraps up the National League fixtures. I know it's been a shorter one tonight, but there's only been 6 games to preview. Next week, we'll be back on Thursday. And I think these are full fixture list, hopefully. So hopefully there'll be a lot more games to preview and we can talk a little bit more about the National League in a little bit more depth. But Paul, anything finally to add?
No. I mean, it's good to be back. Sorry that we've not been here for the last couple of weeks, but yeah, we're back, and it's the running now to the end of the season, and hopefully our teams, whoever's teams you support, will get what you need to finish where you want to finish. And certainly for Wealdstone, we just need to be out of that bottom 4, and obviously with Halifax want to be in that top 7. So yeah, let's see what the next month or 2 brings to see where we go from there. But interesting times in changing the managers and these signings that are coming in, and some of the bigger clubs flexing their muscle a little bit with the signings they made. But it is what it is. The National League is a great league to watch, and starting Saturday, a smaller set of fixtures, but good luck to those that are still in the FA Trophy as well.
Yeah, good luck to you guys as well in the FA Trophy. I don't think either of our sides are competing in that now. We can both focus on the league. But no, we appreciate everyone that's tuned in tonight. If you'd like to become a member, it's just £2.99 a month. You'll get early access to interviews. And for those that have tuned in tonight as well, a Dean Brennan interview, exclusive interview, is getting recorded next week. If you have any questions for him, I'm going to make an announcement on Twitter. But if you have any questions for him, then please pop them below in the comments, and I'll make sure, as long as they're okay, if that makes sense, I'll remember to use those questions to ask him. But no, cheers to everyone that's tuned in tonight. Check out our sponsors, and we will see you next Thursday. Bye for now.